What's going on, ladies, gents, and kids of all ages? It's Eric coming back at you once again from the Nerd Cave, and today we are here for another deck breakdown video, and this just may be my new favorite deck in Disney Lorcana. Not only is it super fun to play, but it's just really good and has been incredibly competitive against multiple meta decks across the scene, including Ruby Amethyst, Ruby Sapphire, Amethyst Steel, Amethyst Emerald, all sorts of different decks that are prevalent across the meta right now. This deck is doing a great job combating. If you're here for more announcements about the giveaway, if you didn't see my Trove Break video, I'm doing a giveaway for this lovely playmat here. Thank you guys so much for showing the love on the Trove Break video. If you guys didn't see that video, I'll throw a link on screen so you can check it out. But we are doing a big giveaway. We're giving away one of these playmats that we made, and we may be working on a new playmat, so stay tuned for future giveaways with that. You guys gave so much love on that video. It's up to almost 100 likes. We're only looking for potentially 50 to do the playmat giveaway, up to 100, but it's up to almost like 2,500 views, which is crazy to me. So thank you guys so much for showing the love on that video. As a bonus, because that's been doing so well, if this video reaches 50 likes, we'll be giving away a second playmat. So you'll have 2 opportunities to win. Those playmats are going to take a couple weeks to come in as they are print on demand, but if you want an opportunity to win, all you have to do is like and comment on this video, and any video you comment on from this video forward, it'll probably take a couple weeks for the playmats to arrive, will earn you an additional entry. So you can get multiple entries to win. So if you want all the opportunities you can get to win this lovely Merlin and Mim playmat, make sure you're commenting on those videos. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this deck that we're going to talk about today, as well as really anything going on in the Lorcana space. There's always new things going on. What's your favorite deck? Talk to me in the comments below. Without any further ado, let's get into my new favorite deck, Mufasa Kicker. So the first card we're going to talk about in the deck, and certainly not least, some people would say this is cuttable, some people say you shouldn't play it at all because there are outs to it in the format, but isn't that true of any good card, is Pluto. Pluto is coming in at a 0/2 for 1, and he has exhaust to make your next guy cost 1 less ink to play. Fantastic card. Comes out and just absolutely puts in work. I'll talk more about some of the plays I've made with him as we get on throughout the deck, but Pluto making your characters cheaper on turn 1, getting a lantern out effectively for turn 1, lantern on a stick as we call it, is just fantastic. So 4 copies of Pluto, non-negotiable. Then our only other 1-drop in the deck, we do have 4 copies of Stitch, New Dog. You may be guessing, seeing this card right off the bat, might mean we're playing another certain card that is a shifter onto him. Otherwise, why would you have the card in the deck? But we'll see more on that later. Moving on to our 2-drop slots. Always pulling his weight is going to be Simba. Fantastic card. Bodyguard can just really throw off what your opponent's plan is. Simba may die in a lot of instances. He may not even get to quest, but him coming down and protecting something like Pluto or Stitch New Dog is fantastic. I've had many games where I was able to play turn 1 Pluto, turn 2 Stitch New Dog, and Simba because I was able to make him cost 1 less with Pluto. It's just a great card. You can also go turn 1 Pluto, turn 2 Pluto, and Simba, which is equally gross if you have the Plutos for it. And then another 2-drop, 2 of our 3 2-drops. We have Flynn Rider. Fantastic card. The big reason I included Flynn over other potential options is because, as you could guess, this is a Mufasa deck. Flynn is great in the fact that even if he is the hit that you get off of Mufasa, which in a lot of cases is not ideal, he is going to come out, and if your opponent chooses to attack into him right away because he does come out exerted to Mufasa, they are going to go ahead and have to discard a card if they have a card in their hand. So he's still giving you some value even in those instances. So he can be a great card, and he's an aggressive quester at the beginning. Making your opponent discard at the beginning of the game can be really rough on them. So Flynn is just great control kind of early in the game. Speaking of which, we have another great control option early in the game. We do have Ursula Deceiver. Fantastic card. Absolutely worth its weight in gold as far as I'm concerned. 1/3 for 2. The 3 stat line is huge because it does keep it outside of things like grab your swords and stuff like that, stuff that's going to deal 2 damage. Let the Storm Rage on is really prevalent in the meta right now. A lot of those steel decks are what this deck struggles the most with, so having some 3 willpower characters is really going to make a huge difference. So Ursula, fantastic. Not only is she great for having 3 willpower against steel, but she comes down, and generally steel decks are going to want to play songs, so you're able to take one of those songs out of their hands that could really slow them down or make it so they can't answer your characters as easily. Then the only non-character card in the entire deck, we do have 4 copies of the Bare Necessities. Some people would make an argument to play a different non-character card like Lantern. I've seen arguments for playing Be Our Guest, which I don't fully understand. There's some green spells, since you're already on discard, like Sudden Chill for a 2 that could be good that people have recommended. Bare Necessities I really like because it's still kind of giving you the same value as Sudden Chill and making them discard a card, but you have choice over what it is. You can sing it, which is also true of Sudden Chill, but you can sing it. I've had fantastic plays where I've been able to go turn to Ursula Deceiver, look at their hand, be able to gain that knowledge that they have a song that I'm able to get rid of or they don't, but they may have another card that I am able to get rid of with Bare Necessities, which may tell me whether or not I want to ink this card or hang on to it and use it to rip that other card out of their hand. It is fantastic, not only for getting rid of things like those songs if you don't have the Ursula, but it can get rid of anything. So you can also look at getting rid of locations. You can get rid of Fishbone Quill if you're playing against Sapphire. So Bare Necessities, in my opinion, has a lot of value. It's really good against Ruby Amethyst to get rid of their Maui's Fishhook, because that's something that can make this deck struggle a little bit more going into the late game, because it does give them a way to make their characters evasive, to out your characters that have evasive in this deck, which we will see later. Jumping into the 3-drop slot, we only have 2 3-drops in this deck, one of them being Doc. Fantastic card. Doc comes out for 3, 2/3 stat line, quest for 2, which is great to keep the pressure on, and whenever he quests you pay 1 less for your next character. So not only are you getting that same kind of value like you are from Pluto, and that you're making your characters cheaper without necessarily having to ink, but he's doing it while he quests, so he's also netting you 2 lore and doing that. Doc is fantastic in this deck, especially with Pluto, because you can go turn 1 Pluto, tap the Pluto to make your ink to cost less on turn 2. You've got 2 ink out, you can go ahead and play Doc, and then on turn 3 you're ready to put down something like Mufasa. You can also do something like turn 1 Pluto, turn 2 Simba and Pluto, turn 3 Mufasa, and then you have Pluto, Simba, Mufasa on the board, which is gross. So some really cool plays that you can do with this deck early in the game to really kind of stifle what your opponent may want to do. In our other 3-drop slot, and talking about stifling what our opponent may want to do, we do have Kit Cloud Kicker. 2/2 for 3, comes down and bounces one of your opponent's characters with a 2 strength or less. This is fantastic against opposing docks, against a lot of the stuff in hyper aggro. This can deal with the Ursula Deceiver of all. Getting her back off the board before she can sing a song can be incredibly relevant, so definitely recommend Kit Cloud Kicker. Some people would make the argument that he could be a 3-of in this deck, but consistency is everything to me, so I do like him as a 4-of. He is inkable, so if he's not great, you can go ahead and ink him. I actually just recently played a game where he straight up won me the game, because we're going into the final turn of the game. Essentially, my opponent had quested up to 19 and developed a Friar Tuck, which, if you don't know, quest for 2 didn't really matter. It could have been something that quested for 1. We had 2 characters on the board and a Friar Tuck, and I was able to kill the 2 characters with characters that I had on the board, and I luckily top decked into a Kit Cloud Kicker. Friar Tuck only has 2 attack, so I was able to Kit Cloud Kicker his Friar Tuck back into his hand, slow him down by 1 turn, and win by exact lore. Alright, and moving into the 4-drop slot, we do have Hades. Just an absolute great card, a tried and true character in my opinion. Having him come down and being able to bring back some of your early threats like Simba to just kind of stifle the board out more is fantastic, and he is a great option for bringing back some of your late game threats. Hitting him with Mufasa is always hilarious, because your Mufasa dies, Hades comes out and you return Mufasa to your hand, which never makes your opponent happy. But Hades can be really, really good. I was actually able to stifle out a game against Ruby Amethyst recently with Perditas by playing 3 Perditas, which is lucking into Perditas to begin with. And then I had a Hades, and I returned the Perdita in my hand, played another Perdita, and the Perditas were questing, returning my other characters. It just really kind of became overwhelming for them, and there wasn't anything they could do about it, even with like Maui's. And I think they got 3 Madame Medusas that game and a Be Prepared, and I still overwhelmed their board. Next card we're going to talk about, and the only other 4-drop in the deck, is going to be Rapunzel. Rapunzel does not always get full value in this deck, and people may make that argument that that makes her less good, but being able to heal at all can be incredibly helpful in those situations where it can keep a character from dying. It is also huge just in the card draw department, so you can sometimes attack in, take 2 damage on something, and Rapunzel it. So even if you're not getting that full 3, you're still getting a character on board that quests for 2, has 5 willpower, and is drawing you 2 cards, which is still phenomenal. So Rapunzel is still great. She's down a little in price. I think they're about $30 right now. She was maybe $50 this time in set 2, 45 maybe. In my opinion, it's not because she's not great. Then moving into the 5-drop slot, we do have a card that has been kind of in contention in this deck. It's a card that I've removed and put back in, and finally landed on it should be a 4-copy card in the deck. Getting it consistently is pretty good, honestly, in the mid to late game. Even a few turns into the game, it's something you can get out if you do have a Pluto dock line or double Pluto line. You can get Ray out on turn 3, which just can be really overwhelming to your opponent. The only things that really combat it well are at that point in the game are Steel. Ruby isn't quite ready for a Ray on turn 3, so you can usually get a couple quests with it before they play something like Madame Medusa and wipe it out, and then you can always Hades it back into your hand potentially if you hit a Hades. But Evasive, 3/3, quest for 3 for 5, just all around good card. They do say, you know, 3 is easy to out as a willpower, so that is kind of a critical number in this game, and that may make Ray less good, but the same could be said for Ursula, right? Or other characters that have 3 willpower that we're still playing. I think Ray is worth it. And of course, the other card in the 5-drop slot is our boy Mufasa. Just a fantastic card. Mufasa is a card that I really think doesn't get enough love personally. It's a 3/3 for 5. When it's banished, you look at the top card of your library. If it's a character, you put it onto the battlefield. There's only once that I've seen this card whiff, since I do only play 4 non-characters, and it was in a game on Pixelborn, and I'm convinced that the game had it out for me in that particular scenario. Maybe not, but got me anyway. So typically, Mufasa is going to be fantastic when he does hit. He's going to pull something of relevance. I've tried to make it with this build even so the 2-drops that it could potentially hit will be good. You have choices with like Simba if you want to put him in bodyguard mode to protect other guys on your board if you hit him off of Mufasa. In a lot of instances, people will attack Mufasa first because they want to keep their other characters open to attack into whatever flips. So if you get something like Simba, sometimes you can stifle the way they wanted to attack into your board. If you get Flynn, you can make him discard, and if you get Ursula, same thing, you can make him discard. The only thing you really don't want to hit off Mufasa are the 1-drops and the bare necessities. Other than that, it's pretty much all good for you. Like Doc comes out, quest for 2, makes your next guy cheaper. Cloud Kicker can a lot of times mount something on their board back to their hand if you hit that. Rapunzel heals and maybe draws you cards, or just comes out and is a quester for 2. Ray quest for 3 and is evasive. So on and so forth throughout the deck. But Mufasa, fantastic. The next card, absolutely necessary in this deck, because honestly, people will tell you the biggest thing you struggle for with Amber Emerald is card draw. We did try to combat that to some extent by playing things that are making our opponent discard. That's kind of the antithesis of card draw, right? If you make them discard enough, you're still gaining that same card advantage without drawing cards. But things like Mufasa replacing themselves is majorly important. Hades kind of replaces itself. Cloud Kicker slows them down enough that it's relevant. So you do have some cards in the deck that will kind of work 2 for 1. But Stitch Rocks are fantastic. You can go turn 1 Pluto, turn 2 Simba, and a Stitch. Once you have the Stitch on the board, going into turn 3, you can ink again, and you're already ready to get Rockstar Stitch online. If you didn't know, Pluto and Doc, their ability works to reduce not only the main cost of the character, but also that shift cost. So you can actually shift Stitch on turn 3 and be in a position where you have Pluto, Stitch, and Simba on the board to protect him. Fantastic board position to be in, and typically a lot of times if you're able to get that particular line, you can be in a position where you have a couple other low drop guys in your hand to play the following turn to capitalize on Stitch's ability before he's outed by something like Along Came Zeus. If they want to Along Came Zeus him right away, which can sometimes happen against Steel, they are going to have to take up their whole turn 4. A lot of times they're not playing aggressive attackers at the beginning unless they're playing Sapphire Steel, so sometimes you don't have to play the Simba, and you could opt to do something like Ursula Stitch turn 2 and out any potential threat that they would have for your Stitch shift, and then shift that way. So there's some options definitely in the early game, even with that particular play line, but being able to put characters into play and draw cards, especially with Simba on the board to protect them, is hugely important, and just generally having that draw engine can be hugely helpful. We do play 3 different 6 drops in this deck, and they're all 4-ofs, which seems a little high, but with Mufasa, you kind of want to have those high cost cards for Mufasa to hit, and I've kind of balanced that out with the low cost cards. We don't have a lot in that mid range. We're focused very much on the beginning and end. That's why things in turn 3 like Doc and Kick Cloud Kicker to kind of skip you ahead turns can be very helpful in keeping that momentum while you're getting into establishing your larger board towards the end of the game. But Perdita is a major part of that larger board towards the end of the game. Whenever she comes into play or quests, you can return a character with cost 2 or less from your discard to play for free. Just absolutely massive. Not only that, but she quests for 2. Typically things like your Plutos, Simbas, Flynn's, Ursulas are going to be outed pretty early in the game. They're not going to let you just sit there and continue to quest with them. They're almost always going to have a cost 1 or 2 in the discard pile when this card is hitting the board. You may have multiples, and I've done some funny stuff, like pull something back from the discard and then they attack in a way that leaves their characters open but not necessarily vulnerable to my low cost characters like Ursula, and so I can use Ursula to attack into their characters. Ursula dies, then quest with Perdita, return her from the discard again, and go ahead and make them discard another card if I know they have an additional song in their hand. She can do really funny stuff with Ursula. She can pull Simba back to protect herself and to protect your other characters. She can pull Flynn back to make your opponent continue to discard. So Perdita is really putting in work in this deck. Heck, even pulling back your Stitch or your Pluto can be helpful. And not to mention, if you have Perdita and Rockstar Stitch on the board, you can actually return a character with Perdita, and because it reads you may play a character with cost 2 or less from your discard for free, it counts as playing character, and when you play a character with cost 2 or less, you may exert them to draw a card with Stitch Rockstar, so you can actually make a draw engine that just kind of keeps going if they can't deal with the Perdita and the Stitch. Last but certainly not least in the 6-drop slot is another character I think some people have made an argument to remove from this deck, which is Genie. I love Genie. I think Genie is freaking great. I had a game where you wouldn't typically want to see this, but I had a game where I had gained board control and my opponent was playing 1 or 2 characters a turn, and I drew Genie 3 turns in a row, and so I just kept genieing back their characters to their hand before they could do anything with them. At the same time, I'm developing more evasive threats that are questing for 2, and I got so far ahead. It just like absolutely wasn't something that they could handle. They didn't really have anything evasive to attack into them, and when they did try to play one evasive character that they did have that still wasn't quite strong enough to even kill a Genie, I just bounced it to its hand with their hand with Genie. So great card, love Genie. He is uninkable, so it's definitely something you want to mulligan if you get it in your starting hand. Same thing with Perdita. And then last but certainly not least, we do have a card that hasn't been seeing as much play in the meta, but I think is great in this deck specifically, or in a red Mufasa deck. It's just a very good card, and that's Stitch Carefree Surfer. One of the things I love about this card, it was something I had taken out of the deck, brought back into the deck, and the reason I brought it back was for one simple reason, and that's because it has 4 attack and it doesn't die to Madame Medusa. So if you're in the late turns against Ruby Amethyst, a lot of them are playing Madame Medusa only. There are some people fitting in the Tremaines now. They do have the Maleficent dragons in some instances, but that being said, if you tempo them out fast enough, a lot of times they haven't even made it to their Maleficent dragon yet, and Stitch can come down and close out a game for you, even if he doesn't get to quest and close out the game for you. In a lot of instances with this deck, when he's coming out, especially if you hit him with Mufasa, he can draw you 2 cards, which is great, and the 4/8 stat line is fantastic. So that's that, folks. That is the breakdown of Amber Emerald Mufasa Kicker. I love this deck. I've been enjoying playing it a lot. I actually played it at League last week and went 3-0. I lost the die roll 2 out of the 3 rounds that I played in, which means that I was going second 5 out of the 6 games that I played, and I still won every single round 2-0. I've also played at other leagues and done quite well with it, and I've had some great success with it online also, but I highly encourage you guys to check it out. I've had some people in the online groups that I'm in mention that they were able to take it to their local league and were very competitive with it, were able to put up great scores, and most importantly had a lot of fun playing the deck, which is probably my favorite thing about it. There's other decks that I think are just as competitive, maybe more competitive, who knows, but I'm just not having as much fun playing them. I have a blast playing this deck. It's always a lot of fun to see my opponent's reactions to the plays that I'm making. Please drop your comments below and let me know what you are thinking of this deck. Is there any changes that you would make? I have been testing this and tweaking it and testing it and tweaking it and testing it and tweaking it, so I feel like it's in its final form, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Not to mention, if you comment below on this video or any subsequent videos until the playmats come in, you are getting entered to win this Merlin and Mim playmat, and like I mentioned, I'm working on another playmat design coming in the future. So thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you for continuing to tune into the videos. If you have any feedback for me, I always love to hear it. I can't wait for more exciting content coming to the channel. What did you guys think of the first gameplay video? Was there anything you would change with that? But thank you so much for sticking around to the end. Remember to like and comment to get entered into this giveaway, and subscribe if you're enjoying the content a lot. We just hit 500 subscribers, and I'm thinking about doing another big giveaway at 1,000 subscribers, maybe a booster box or something, and we'll hit probably some giveaways every 100 subscribers within there. So when we get to 600, we'll be looking to do another small giveaway. When we get to 1,000, we'll be looking at giving away probably a booster box. Who knows how long it'll be before that happens. Most likely of Ursula's return, because that'll probably be out by then. But I appreciate all of your support. And remember, when you see those toys, video games, and Mufasa Kicker decks off in the distance, it is not a mirage. You guys have a great day.